Alright, today we're going to be continuing our study of Pete Townshend's style by looking at another classic from Tommy. We're going to look at Sparks, which is pretty much the greatest rock instrumental of all time, I would say, and is a real clinic on those movable chord shapes we've been spending a lot of time on. I'm going to be looking at the version from Live at Leeds, the greatest Who album of all time. And I'm going to attempt to first play along with that version, starting with the transition point from Amazing Journey at about 4:15. And then I'm going to break down the whole thing for you, step by step. Okay, so definitely a few clams in there. I got a little off on the timing at one point up here, but let's start breaking this thing down, because the main point, of course, is to show you how to do it, not to get a perfect performance out of myself. The song starts with the transition from Amazing Journey, and Pete is just hitting an E power chord there. We know that Pete is a huge fan of the power chord. And for a little bit of review, the power chord consists of the root and the fifth of a chord. So when Pete's playing E power chord, he will skip the G sharp there on the third string first fret, because that's the third, and he'll grab the B note there at the fourth fret third string, because that's the fifth of the E chord. So if you were to play the whole chord, that would be root, fifth, fifth, Pete has said in an interview, which another YouTube person here shared with me, that he doesn't like using the third when he's using distortion because the third creates some unnatural harmonics that he doesn't like. And of course many other rock guitarists have discovered this as well, at playing just the root and the fifth, hence the power chord. So here he's just playing root, fifth on the fourth and third strings, and just doing a little hammer on, lifting up that index finger on the fourth string. Really common little motif from Tommy. And then D chord. He's really probably just hitting fourth and third strings again. Pete plays parts of chords. That's the key to his technique here. And then, so just C sharp A on the fifth string. So into the transition to sparks, this B chord, which is of course your movable A shape, up 2 frets, and then he loves doing this in Tommy too. We saw it in See Me Feel Me. He adds 2 notes to that B major chord by barring the first 2 strings at the 5th fret with his pinky. And what do you have there? You have the suspended 4. Alright, this is A suspended 4. So this is B suspended 4. So he's adding a sus4. And then he's adding that A note on top, which is the 7th in a B chord. So it's essentially a B7 sus4. It's hard to play if you don't have this whole thing going on well. You need to practice it, but plays this little nice pretty A6 chord, which is just an A, and then you bar that the first string, so you're barring the first 4 strings. That's an A6, and of course that's movable too, B6, and on up the fretboard. And now we are into the main motif of Sparks, which is played almost entirely, the whole song, by these 2 movable shapes, your D shape, right, and what we can call your F. It's really the E, right? F, F sharp, G, playing the first 3 strings only of these 2 chords. There's mentioning here that throughout the whole song, off and on, Pete is droning on that open D note, the 4th string. I did not do that in the demo. We've already got enough dissonance going on. I've got a distortion pedal on. We've got the computer speakers playing the original in the background. And of course a D note creates some dissonance with some of these different chords that we're playing up and down the neck. But just be aware of that. It's good to add that when you're playing it solo. When you're playing it with a band, as with The Who, the bass player is droning on that D note, so it's not quite as important. When I was showing you this, I really wanted you to get the first 3 string part, because of course that's the main thing. So the main motif is a movable D chord, up 2 frets to an E. Add the sus4, which is the A note, at the 5th fret first string. Then lift up both fingers off that first string, play it open, which is an E note. And I noticed on the Woodstock version, which is on YouTube here, and it's got some good close-ups of Pete's hands, it looks like he plays that with a, kind of plucks it with an upstroke with an open finger. So again, it plays twice. And then the third time, chord, slightly tricky, you grab that A note, play it open, and then back to the E to repeat the motif there. That grabbing of the A note, obviously a little bit easier on a shorter scale guitar like a Gibson. It's not that complicated, but just note that that's a favorite of Pete's. We've seen it, you know, with the B chord I showed you a minute ago. He's grabbing that note. We just saw it with the D chord, and he does it, of course, with the A chord. You know, and he loves grabbing these two notes, okay, or just one of them, just the A. Little side note on Pete's style, and that's what we're talking about here today. So, after the E to the D thing, the next motif is that single note line, E-D, right? Everything's E-D here. Spend a lot of time on that single note line. It's not complicated. The only sort of tricky thing in there is he kind of hits muted strings after he plays the line, and I can't replicate that at this volume. You know, he's got obviously the Gibson SG special through the high watt stacks, and you know, striking the strings here in a spare bedroom with a Princeton Reverb on 2 isn't quite the same effect. Just be aware of that. You can play around with that. So, leads back into our B chord, and again, he does that B7 sus4 back to B. Now, this next part is sort of where the droning starts. You know, if you want to play around with that, that's sort of how that droning thing goes. So, it starts E to D, then E, D, A. So that's our movable F shape. You're just barring the first two strings. So again, movable F shape, played as an A up at the 5th fret. So, repeat. Then you're coming up here to an F sharp, movable D, to a B flat, movable F shape, landing on a G, 7th fret. Okay, this might seem a little tricky, but it is not. It is very, very simple. You're just going back from a D shape to, again, whether you want to call it an F shape or whatever, but those two shapes. So, landing on that G, and there the droning does not cause dissonance, because the D note is the 5th in a G chord, right? G, B, and D. So that's why he lands there. It's a nice point of resolution. And he plays this beautiful little arpeggiated lick there. That's just a G to a G sus4. You've played that. It's in a million songs down here at the open position with the D to a D sus4. So, then he grabs 10th fret 2nd string. Okay, again. Repeat. He resolves on the 10th fret 1st string. So you got a little stretching to do there with your pinky to the 10th fret. Notice it's that same sort of motif that we had down here with him moving and grabbing those notes up several frets. It's the same exact thing. Again, showing you that moving these same chord shapes all over the fretboard can create all kinds of new opportunities. This next section is very similar to the first section, but instead of the 4th and 2nd and 5th, you're at the 7th, 5th, and 8th with those same shapes, the D shape and the F shape. Okay, so he goes. So we're just going between a G, an F, and a C, and this is a good place to point out why these movable shapes add so much to your sound. If you played it down here and went G, F, G, F, C, G, F, it'd be really boring, right? But up here you can... How much cooler is that? Very much cooler, right? Okay, so again, this isn't hard. It might seem hard, it's not hard. It's just 2 chords. You're just moving 2 chords around. The second time he goes up to the D version of the F chord there at the 10th fret. And this part's really sweet, right? He's just going from a D shape to an F shape. He's got a D chord of the F shape to a B chord of the D shape. And then he comes down here and he plays this sweet little C9. Okay, so you've got your movable version of the F that's a C there at the 8th fret, and you're putting your pinky on the 10th fret first string, which is the 9th of a C chord. And then he comes back to the D and goes, and he plays it once, and then he goes. And I don't know if he really does that or if he cheats and goes, because it's very distorted at this point. Obviously it's building towards the crescendo, but the point is he's switching rapidly between these 2 chords until it reaches the crescendo, and he goes, you know, he just nails the E power chord. And different versions, he does different things in here. He does a lot of, you know, sliding his pick up and down the 6th string. He'll come up, and the one on Live at Leeds, he goes, it's just an octave there, playing a D to a G note at the 12th fret. He also does this, you know, just hammering on the E to the D there on the 4th string, 3rd fret. Does all this sort of stuff, and then he goes to a D power chord. In Leeds, Live at Leeds version, he doesn't play any lead guitar over that, but in virtually every other version I've heard, he comes up and starts soloing a little bit over that D, and then back to the E, which, as I said, he does on the Leeds version, he does the little pick on the pick drag on the 6th string trick. Goes back into the main motif single note line, played exactly the same way as the first time, resolved exactly the same way as the first time with the then the next part is also the same as the first time around. But instead of doing a little arpeggio, this time he just resolves. C, G, A, E, D, C, G, This is a beautiful descending chord riff, and couldn't be simpler. Again, you just have these two shapes. That descending run also echoes some of the themes in Amazing Journey, which is, of course, the lead into Sparks. I'm going to show you one other thing here, if I have time, and that's Entwistle's bassline. What a thing of beauty that is. It's just a E to a D, the A shape, right? Because bass players play movable chord shapes too. And he's just hitting this little arpeggio thing. Cool, really cool. Play around with that, see if you can figure out the rest of it. Pete did say in another interview here on YouTube that Entwistle was actually the lead guitarist of the band. He was just posing as a lead guitarist. Pretty funny, but also kind of true. If you've listened to enough Who, you know that Entwistle is just an amazingly fast, creative, melodic lead bass player. That's Sparks. Hope you enjoyed it. Have fun, and I will see you next time.